Good morning, Derbycon.
Good morning.
Must not have been too much of a party last night because everybody's already up before 11. So
Looking up for it tonight.
perfect. So just a quick introduction. This is a true story. This happened about a year and a half ago to a friend of mine. So I gathered the information, added a little stuff to it, and as far as technical jargon, and then we're going to talk about it. So this is no class, low tech, high damage. Who am I? Just a nobody, really. I'm just a lucky guy who's got some really smart friends. Pentest Fail, who might be in the room. Skydog, Dave Kennedy, Chris Hagnaghi. Been a developer for 20 plus years. I was reformed about 6 years ago and started getting into security. Been attending cons. I've helped run Skydog Con for 3 years. So that's about that. What the talk's about, it's about social engineering. I borrowed this definition from Chris's site, socialengineer.org. Any act that influences a person that may or may not be in their best interest. And in this particular case, what the person was trying to do to manipulate the people was definitely not in their best interest. Okay. So here's where we get into the setup. The person picked up a free job listing from a well-known company. I'm not going to say the name, but there should be a hint on the screen. It tells you who they got an account through. They stole a company name from somebody who was not in the area that they were targeting. They put up a job posting, said, "Hey, we're opening a new office in this mid-sized city." They specifically targeted an office manager, administrative assistant, because they were looking for somebody who didn't have a degree, not necessarily a lot of technical expertise, but they were looking for somebody who had experience so they could target the age group that they were looking for. And they were offering about 26% higher than the average income of the area, and it was closer to 30% above what this position would normally pay in this space. So it was a big candy cane to put out in front of somebody to try to get as many people to apply as possible. If you take a look, this is the actual first reply that came back. I did block out the names of the company that they had stolen the information from to get started. So if you see in the red about the middle of the page, they were looking at $21 an hour. And, in the area where we're at, Charleston, South Carolina, yes, we survived the hurricane. That's probably $5 to $6 above what that position would normally pay an hour. So they were definitely trying to encourage as much as possible. The very first reply that came back, they ask a lot of questions. How soon can you start? So anybody who's listened to any of the social engineering talks around the area, when you feel that emotional feeling, you want to take a close look at it. So they're asking right off the bat, how soon can you start? They're offering a significant pay raise to what you're making. They ask some typical interview questions. So from here, as I'll talk a little bit more as we get more into it, this actually did go through a fairly well-built interview process, which was pretty interesting. Stealing the word from wrestling, the mark, the person that you're going after, mid-career employees. You're looking for somebody who's well out of high school, not requiring a degree, though. So you're looking for somebody who's high school educated. You're looking for people who are at or below the average salary of the area, so that carrot that they're dangling out in front of you really springs forward. And they're also, by not requiring a degree, not requiring a bunch of technical skills, they're looking for people who have very limited technical knowledge. So they're trying to target somebody that they can take advantage of, which is absolutely horrible. Initially, you couldn't really tell what the goals were. Were they looking for personal information? Were they just messing around? Were they trying to get money? But they definitely followed this quote from Jesse the Body Ventura. Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. Because they were definitely cheating. They had picked up a free email address. They had picked up a free account on the unnamed recruiting site. They were using Google Voice numbers to work through it, and we can talk through it a little bit more. As I get over to the timeline, day 0, they go out, they open the short-term account with the online recruiter. Then they start just collecting the information as it comes in. People are applying for a job. You send them your resume. It has your name, your address, your phone number, your email address, previous employers, description of the jobs that you've done in the past. So there's a ton of open source information that just was immediately out the door, which made it harder to figure out what they were looking for. They did do some reviewing of their candidates to make sure that they met the needs. I don't know numbers. I wasn't able to get that far along in the information, but they did reach out. They did multiple phone interviews. I wasn't party to the actual interviews, but speaking to the person who helped figure all this out, it was a reasonable job interview. They were asking questions of, do you know how to use Office? What would you do for this type of document? What would you do for that type of document? So it was reasonable. So then they went to the point of making a verbal offer. $21 an hour. That's $43,000 a year, give or take. Then they asked the candidate to take time out of their day, go out and price office equipment for opening up this new office that they were starting to put into town. So the candidate, thinking they've got a new job coming up, goes out, prices HP printers, prices printer cartridges, desks, tables, took a significant portion of time out of their day trying to impress their new bosses, trying to find the good prices on things. So it was pretty abusive as far as I would be concerned, to take advantage of somebody this way. So after they get all the prices, they figure out how much it's going to take to get the equipment that they're looking for. They let the candidate know that they're going to send them a check to pay for the office gear. Kind of unusual in a new job situation, but from talking to a few other people, not as unusual as I thought it was. So then they send out the check via FedEx. And if you take a look, the person got a FedEx delivery notice. The envelope shows up in a FedEx envelope. Turns out that the FedEx account information used to send it had been stolen, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And there was a real looking corporate check. The banking information did match up with the name at the top, but we'll find out a little bit more about it in a little bit. So they were very good about timing. They set the FedEx delivery to arrive on a Friday. That'll become apparent why they did that shortly. Then they asked the new hire to go out and buy prepaid Visa gift cards so that they can track the expenses when you're going to buy the equipment that you've already priced. And then, of course, they asked their new hire to give them the credit card information, the numbers, so that when they see the hits on the prepaid credit card, they can see what they bought and do their expenses. And, you know, good bookkeeping practices is what they tried to sell it as. However, when we got to this point, the check arrives, and if I pop back to it for just a second, I did block out the name at the top, but the company name on the check did not match the company that was trying to get hired for. So the new hire questions it, which anybody would. The hiring manager who's on the phone, which happens to be the fiend in this case, justifies the check by saying that it's from one of their subsidiaries. So one company owns another company. They issued a check out of the subsidiary for whatever reason. So as this moved on, and this is, I've had to scrunch this down for a short talk, but this happened over a matter of weeks. It wasn't just a single day. So a heroine takes over. The new hire catches on, does a little bit of research, goes out and finds out that while this was being sold as a company in China opening a new office in Charleston, it really wasn't. They had a bunch of different places around the United States already. So there's the first crack in the wall. The heroine in this case steps up and says, hey, I don't have a lot of money in my account. I need to wait for the check to clear. And then once it gets a little bit more of it, says, oh, the first check bounced, and calls up the hiring manager and says, hey, what's going on? The check bounced. The hiring manager says, oh, we waited too long to cash it. We'll send you another check. And they did. They sent a second check. So at this point, there's definitely something wrong. Our heroine in this case starts to string along the attacker to try to get as much information as possible. At the same time, they've reached out to law enforcement. Turns out the company who was being forged, I guess would be the right word, on ZipRecruiter already knew about it, and this has been going on in several places around the country. At the same time, gathering information, grab the FedEx account number that was used on the letter that was sent, turn that over so whoever on that account could be notified. Both of the checks, the bank accounts had already been stopped, so those checks were gonna bounce. When the second check came through, the fiend in this case actually had enough nerve to ask for a receipt of the deposit, which is just astounding. Big brass ones as far as I'm concerned. So a little bit of magic with Adobe. Our heroine comes up with a fake deposit receipt to match their fake check, to match their fake job posting. So the information there shows that they didn't have very much in their account to start with, shows the deposit for the exact amount that was on the check, a little bit of addition. So a little Photoshop, a little creativity, and they were able to keep it going for a little bit longer. This went on for about another week at this point. The most frustrating part of it was, even though it was blatantly obvious they were caught, they still tried to push it and still tried to carry it forward. Our heroine in this case luckily didn't have a job, but our story had a happy ending. But an unwitting candidate, this went on for a couple of weeks. So this person could have already turned in their 2 weeks notice, left a good job that was, wasn't $21 an hour, but it was paying the bills. They could have gone down to the Walmart, the CVS, Lowe's, wherever, picked up $2,450 in prepaid Visa cards that would, once they gave the numbers, the money was going to disappear, obviously. As soon as they had the code, the 3-digit code off the back, the money was going to disappear. And then 2 days later, because it takes about 2 days for a bank to bounce through the Fed. I don't know how many of you are familiar with how the Fed handles money, but they will try a check up to 6 times before they bounce it completely back. The person's going to have that check bounce out of their account. Then they still owe the money for the gift cards. That money's gone. The check's no good. You're going to have at least $100 in fees from your bank because they did try to put the check through multiple times. All kinds of, now you've lost $2,500. You're only making $15 an hour. How are you going to make your mortgage payment, your car payment? There's just total devastation that could happen to an unwitting candidate. So the targeters in this case were heartless, for sure. They were fairly well skilled in low-tech things, coming up and making fake corporate checks, getting job postings. They were very good at covering up their lies or trying to cover up their lies. Oh, the check bounced because we waited too long to cash it. Oh, the FedEx label didn't get sent. They were also very good at just doing fake interviews, kind of like what they're doing upstairs to practice us to help us get through interviews better. But they were pretty good at it. They asked the right questions. They had the right ideas. Really, everything fell apart when they tried to rush to getting a bunch of money, which it wasn't a small amount. So what do we learn from it? And I didn't put a slide in there for this. I wasn't sure I was going to have enough time for it. But so what do we learn? Anytime you look at a job posting, take it with a grain of salt, no matter what site it's on. If it's on Monster, careers.com, doesn't really matter unless you're going to a site that you know is super reputable and you're going directly to the employer site. Take it with a grain of salt. When you click the apply link, make sure you pay attention to where it goes. When the first response comes back, if it's coming from a Gmail address, do a Google search on the Gmail address. See if you can see that somebody else has reported it before. When you get further down the line, if it smells too sweet or tastes too good, it probably is. I've been working for different jobs for 30 too many years. I've had the best of jobs and I've had the worst of jobs, and I can tell you that it's always going to be just a little worse than it tastes. But if you can handle the taste, then it's probably a pretty good thing. Even though law enforcement was very frustrated with this group, and they have not yet, to my knowledge, made any progress on capturing them, still take the time, play around with them, have some fun, but in the end, turn it over to law enforcement, because people who are doing this kind of stuff are going to hurt people. May not be somebody that you care about, may not even be somebody that you know, but people who are in a position to lose a lot. So that's kind of from my standpoint. Anybody else have any other comments about what you might have picked up? Sure.
Well, I had a comment and a question.
Okay.
So the comment is, when an employer starts asking you to do something, like an employer quote, starts asking you to do something that seems like, why would you ask me to do this if you haven't done X, Y, and Z for me first? That should probably be the warning sign. But the question I have is, do you have, since this crew has gone around to several states or several areas, as you said, do we have any idea how much damage they've actually wrought, how many victims have actually fallen and taken the bait and they're out money? Do we have any idea of the damage?
The law enforcement were pretty tight-lipped about it. They were saying, thank you for the information, but I can't really give you additional information because that's compromising other people. So the focus on it was more of they were taking in information rather than giving it out. So I would like to know. I would love to know. I just don't know at this point.
Did they work with local or federal law enforcement?
It did go to federal. So that was FBI was involved, which is normally the crew who would be involved in something like this. The amount of money definitely made it a felony for sure, crossing state lines, because even the Google Voice number that they were using was from Northern California. I think I left it in the email. For the people who are using false stuff, no protection. For the people who, that were innocent victims, I blocked out as much as I could. Sure, in the back.
Question. So, how often have you seen or heard of retribution for, as you mentioned, having to vote these guys? How often is there backlash on the role itself, especially if these are organized crime syndicates?
I know that I've talked to probably half a dozen people, probably 2 or 3 more people since I got here who saw the description of the talk. And it seems like maybe 20% or people will string them along, but then I only know of one person who actually went to law enforcement. So that's why I'm pushing that point with what I'm saying here at the end is definitely turn it over. You may not have any luck, but they might make that one mistake. And if they do, then we can give them what they deserve.
Well, I mean, again, when you string them along, have you ever heard of backlash for them getting pissed off that also wasted your time and that you are turning to law enforcement?
No, I mean, at that point, all they have is some open source intel about you, basically, where you used to work. I mean, people put that in LinkedIn all the time. So it's minimal.
No, a job application, wouldn't you have a social security number?
True, but after...
Filling out your medical?
But from Equifax, that's out there anyway. But yeah, you're right. In the back.
Has anybody else seen this happen at their company? Just show of hands, because we've seen it at ours.
So that's like 6 or 8 people. I saw one question over here. I thought. No? All right, so thanks, Derbycon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. If there's any questions, I have bourbon in my bag, so,